April 18th, 2005. On this day, a nation known for banning chewing gum, enforcing rigid rules, and upholding conservative values placed a multi-billion-dollar bet on its own future. Singapore's Prime Minister stood before Parliament and made a stunning announcement. Casinos were coming to Singapore. It was a decision that would not just build one of the world's most iconic structures and a sprawling resort of themed hotels and attractions, but would fundamentally rewrite the nation's economic formula and challenge its very identity. This is the story of how one decision changed the Lion City forever. Our story begins in the mid-2000s when Singapore's leaders faced a dilemma. Tourism was stagnating. Visitor arrivals had flatlined around 7 million a year, and tourism receipts fell by 17% from 1993 to 2002. Regional rivals like Bangkok and Hong Kong were drawing tourists, and nearby Malaysia's Genting Highlands resort, complete with a casino, was luring Singaporeans abroad. Singapore, famous for being safe but dull, was losing its sparkle. The pressure was on to reinvent the city as a must-visit destination. Enter the idea of the integrated resort. In August 2004, newly minted Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong floated a shocking proposal during his first National Day rally speech. It's to do with the casino, he said, even after advisors warned him not to mention such a controversial idea. For decades, his father Lee Kuan Yew had upheld a strict no-casino policy as part of Singapore's moral code. Over the next year, the government and the public engaged in an unprecedented debate. Ministers held dialogues, studies were commissioned, and the media buzzed with arguments for and against legalizing casinos. It was a rare sight in a country where citizens usually trusted the government's decisions, and indeed, opposition was fierce. The mere idea of a casino sparked a highly charged public debate. Religious groups and social workers spoke out, warning of addiction, crime, and families torn apart by gambling debts. An online petition garnered nearly 30,000 signatures against the plan, a remarkable act of protest in rule-abiding Singapore. Newspaper forums overflowed with hundreds of letters, many pleading to keep the casinos out. Even an infamous convicted gambling addict, Chia Tek Leng, a former banker serving 42 years in prison for massive fraud, wrote a letter from jail urging strict controls if a casino were approved. On the other side of the debate were promises of economic revival. Singapore's leaders argued that without new attractions, the country would stand still while Asia's tourism boomed. Every so often, they reasoned, Singapore needed a bold idea to draw fresh visitors. The proposed integrated resorts wouldn't be mere casinos, but world-class complexes with hotels, theme parks, shopping and entertainment, a whole package of fun. He promised there would be safeguards to limit the social impact, including barring minors, banning credit for ordinary players, and slapping a hefty entrance fee on Singaporeans who wished to enter. After months of soul-searching, the decision came in April 2005. Singapore would roll the dice. The cabinet, deeply divided at first, ultimately gave the green light for not one but two integrated resorts. The long-time ban on gambling was lifted, overturning a pillar of the elder statesman Lee Kuan Yew's Asian values governance. It was official. The famously straight-laced city-state was taking a massive gamble on gambling. The announcement in Parliament made global headlines. Lee Kuan Yew himself, having pondered the global trend, gave his cautious blessing to the move. To do nothing in 2005, he argued, would be to remain the same old Singapore, a neat and tidy place with no chewing gum, not a fun place in a world quickly changing. Singapore needed to be, in his words, an economically vibrant and exciting city to stay relevant. Speaking of bold moves, this video is brought to you by Revolut, the financial super app trusted by 50 million users worldwide that lets you spend, save, and manage your money smarter. Whether you're visiting Marina Bay Sands or planning a quick escape abroad, Revolut makes it effortless to spend in over 150 currencies at great exchange rates. From fee-free ATM withdrawals to in-app currency exchange and even smart budgeting tools, Revolut puts global finance in your pocket. We personally love using Revolut to track expenses when researching stories across Southeast Asia, and it's a game changer for creators and travelers alike. Get $30 cash back when you sign up for Revolut using the link below or scan the QR code on screen. Marina Bay Sands rises like a monument to Singapore's boldest bet. 3 shimmering towers crowned by a sky park that floats like a ship in the clouds. The vision had come to life. On one end, Marina Bay Sands, an $8 billion Singapore dollar marvel that redefined the skyline. It features a massive convention center, a luxury mall, fine dining by celebrity chefs, theaters, and that iconic infinity pool atop its sky park. And of course, the casinos. Inside MBS, for example, are 1,000 gaming tables and 1,400 slot machines buzzing around the clock. On the other end, Resorts World Sentosa, a sprawling complex of hotels, a casino, a giant aquarium, and Universal Studios Singapore. Together, they weren't just casinos. They were the glittering cornerstones of a new Singapore. When the Resorts World Sentosa opened in early 2010 and Marina Bay Sands soon after, Southeast Asia watched in awe. In 2010, the very year both resorts opened, Singapore's visitor arrivals jumped 20% to 11.6 million, a new record. Tourism revenue soared nearly 50% to about $14.8 billion that year. Officials credited the integrated resorts for this dramatic spike. By a few years in, tourism income had doubled to $18 billion, and arrivals were nearly 50% higher than before the casinos. The city that had been struggling to attract visitors found itself ranked among the top destinations in Asia. And it wasn't just about visitor statistics. Jobs poured in too. Tens of thousands of Singaporeans found employment. By one estimate, 35,000 to 45,000 jobs were created directly and indirectly. In other words, the bet seemed to be paying off. In the first quarter of 2010, Singapore's GDP jumped 13%, a sign, as one report put it, that the gamble may already be paying off. Money was flowing, investors were happy, and Singapore was shedding its sleepy image, the skyline. Now graced by a gleaming casino resort that looks like a work of art, proclaimed a new era. Singapore had, in some ways, hit the jackpot. Every gamble has a potential downside, and it didn't take long for the social costs of Singapore's casino experiment to emerge. Despite all the safeguards and fine print, the lure of the casino proved hard to resist for many locals. The government had imposed a steep entry levy, 100 Singapore dollars for every Singaporean who walks into a casino, later raised to 150. This was meant to discourage casual gambling by citizens and protect those who could least afford to lose. In theory, the casinos were built for deep-pocketed foreigners and high rollers, not Singapore's heartlanders. Yet in practice, locals poured in. A study soon found that 50 to 60% of casino frequenters were Singaporeans, not overseas tourists. Clearly, thousands of everyday people were willing to pay that entry fee for a shot at fortune or perhaps an escape from daily life. The government's goal was to keep Grandma and Grandpa from gambling away their retirement, but the brightly lit halls of Marina Bay Sands and Resorts World proved a strong temptation close to home. Almost immediately, signs of problem gambling began to surface. The National Council on Problem Gambling, NCPG, which had been set up in 2005 as a preemptive measure, saw a surge in cries for help. In the months after the first casino opened, calls to the NCPG's helpline more than doubled, from about 200 a month to over 500. In March 2010 alone, there were 520 calls. Councillors saw a sharp rise in first-time addicts, many drawn in simply because the casino was now just around the corner. The government raced to strengthen the safety net. Singapore introduced exclusion orders. Problem gamblers could be banned from casinos at the request of family members or even on their own accord. By the end of 2013, nearly 188,000 people were on exclusion lists, barred from the casinos due to gambling problems. Strikingly, the vast majority, about 140,000, were people who voluntarily self-banned, recognizing their own addiction. But addiction wasn't the only shadow. Loan sharks or illegal money lenders resurfaced as some desperate gamblers borrowed at high interest to chase their losses, renewing an age-old social ill. Singapore's leaders knew this could happen. They had studied Las Vegas and Macau, places plagued by crime and vice around the casinos. Determined to avoid those traps, Singapore put in place strict laws. No casino advertising aimed at locals, no pawn shops or loan shark kiosks allowed on casino grounds, and a dedicated casino crime investigation branch in the police to clamp down on money laundering and organized crime. Still, the social debate raged on. Community leaders continued to voice concern that the cultural ethos of Singapore might be shifting. Were Singaporeans becoming more accepting of gambling, dazzled by the allure of easy money, or was this simply the unveiling of problems that had always lurked beneath? But while critics still question the moral cost, the government is doubling down. Marina Bay Sands and Resorts World Sentosa are both expanding. Billions are being poured into new towers, attractions, and entertainment zones. The model didn't just work, it reshaped the economy. In the end, Singapore did what it does best. It studied, it planned, and it executed a vision, betting that it could get the upside of casinos while curbing the downside.